When bad things happen, it becomes news, and people like me talk about it on your television. For some of you, it's very relevant. For others, it's not something that really impacts your life. In the world of industrial accidents, there's a man who has made it his calling in life to dig really deep and understand what happened so that these things can be prevented. That man is award-winning engineer and author John Pushkar. Today, we're going to explore the world of investigating these kinds of accidents. John, thank you for being here today. And can you tell our audience what you plan to accomplish with this series?
Over the last 40 years, I've developed and led fuels and combustion equipment safety programs for the largest manufacturers in the world. Today, I'm bringing you knowledge, insights, and best practices about fired equipment and natural gas safety. Over the next few minutes, you'll get the kind of practical, real-life explanations that I've become known for.
Layla, if the world were a simpler place, there'd be perfect information after every incident. Experts from all over the world would be given access to everything that happened, every fact, every detail. Unfortunately, things don't work that way. The sad reality is that most accidents we never really hear about. Unless there's a fatality, they don't get much press. There is then the matter of experts, factual witnesses, engineers that assist lawyers in cases. Oftentimes they have to sign confidentiality agreements and they really can't discuss what went on in the case. Whether it could save someone's life or not, they really can't publicly disclose the facts of the case. In some cases, I know I've been shoulder to shoulder with folks who have worked on cases that were very public, sitting in NFPA meetings, trying to get a code or a standard changed, and I knew that the person sitting next to me had detailed information that could help, but frankly, they couldn't expound on the details of what was involved. So at the end of the day, it's a struggle to really dig into the facts. I've learned some tips and tricks over the past 40 years I'm going to share with you today. I'm hoping to arm you with tools that I've discovered through great pain, through many, many hours of research and digging, and through many frustrating experiences. I'm hoping that I can inspire some of you to also, in whatever the field you're in, dig into the facts behind some of these incidents and help to change the world. That's what it's all about.
In the description of the episode, you use the word they. You said there's information that they don't want you to know. What do you mean by this? Who would not want information out that could help others?
Layla, the they is many different parties. I don't mean to use the term nefariously or to behave as if there's some massive conspiracy going on. The fact of the matter is, the way our society is structured, the way the legal system works, there are many competing interests every time there's an injury or an incident. I'm going to show you some very popular, somewhat simple ways to dig behind the scenes and get some information. And I'm also going to show you some that take a tremendous amount of effort and perseverance. I'm going to give you insights into some of the theys that won't be thrilled and some of the consequences. And speaking of consequences, you have to be very careful with the information that you do obtain. You have to use it responsibly. You have to use it accurately. If you hurt people with this information, even unknowingly, you can be liable, and there could be very serious consequences to you. An example of one of the theys that's been involved in my life, and a group that I'm sure doesn't love me so much anymore, is the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. I was concerned about an accident I heard about where a utility worker got killed through a gas line explosion. It was a massive pressure release at a pigging station, and I wanted to find out what happened. I sent them a Freedom of Information Act request, which I'll talk about later in this episode. They took forever to respond, which most of these groups do take forever to respond. They provided scant little information. I had to appeal what they did provide. They then provided more. It was very embarrassing for them. I had to go over their head and make a complaint. At the end of the day, they were admonished for how they treated me. They were made to waive any fees they were trying to charge me. And they suddenly became very cooperative. They know who I am now. So I don't think I'll get treated that way in the future. But I kind of feel bad for all the people who came before me who were treated that way. I feel bad for what they were able to get away with and what they felt was the norm for how to treat people who are trying to get information to do good with it.
So I know that news organizations often subscribe to different news feeds and services. How do you go about finding out more about industrial accidents once you hear about them?
Layla, I always start with a Google search. I also use the Google Alerts feature where I put in a number of keywords, and every day I'm alerted of different fires and explosions that occur anywhere in the world. I also, like you guys, I subscribe to a number of news services. One of them is called Law 360, where I get notices of important cases that are going on, and I have keyword searches in there as well related to fires and explosions. In many cases, I'm able to get complaints and other detailed information about settlements right from that news source. There are then also a number of other internet accessible public entities which publish reports and investigations that they've done. OSHA, for example, has a wonderful database with accident information and information on citations. National Transportation Safety Board also does periodic investigations and publishes them. PIMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, a part of the Department of Transportation, also provides information on studies and investigations, as does the U.S. Chemical Safety Board and many public utility commissions, and even like ODNR, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and likewise whatever parallel organization in your state, like maybe the Texas Railroad Commission, that might handle oil and gas exploration. When there are issues related to those industries, they sometimes do their own investigations and publish the results publicly. I've put links to these organizations in the comments section of this video so that you can access them more easily.
Okay, so once you've done this level of search, do you usually have enough information to do much?
So if there's lawsuits or an OSHA citation, it means there's going to be more information. I regularly file Freedom of Information Act requests to OSHA, and when I do, I ask for things like the actual signed citations, I ask for field notes, and I ask for any other evidence like interviews or reports that they had available as a basis to determine what the citations were going to be. You can file Freedom of Information Act requests with any public entity. I've again provided information on the form that takes for me. I also create a little spreadsheet where I track the ones I've sent. Unfortunately, what I find is that some organizations take forever to get back to me, some forget. Now, there are actually laws which force them to get back to you. Some of these folks, though, are kind of obstinate. They'll respond back to you, but sometimes only to tell you that they've received the information and it's being processed. I've also then had folks reply with very little information, which was pretty much useless, and I've had to appeal regularly. In the case of lawsuits, usually once a case is settled, depending on what's been admitted into evidence, you can go directly to the courthouse where it occurred, go to the clerk of court's office, and you can ask to see information from the case. I've done this successfully a number of times. I found it to be a treasure trove of information. I've had access to actual expert reports, depositions from witnesses, from defendants, from plaintiffs, from experts on the case. The only problem is is that, first of all, you've got the time and the expense to get to the courthouse. You then oftentimes have to sit there for hours and hours and hours and dig through many file boxes of information. And then to actually take any of that information home, you're going to be making copies on some probably antiquated copying machine at 25 cents a copy, hand feeding sheets. And you may be standing in line at the copier to actually get that done. In some cases, the deposition service can get you a transcription as well. So there's a few little tips and tricks there, but again, if you really want detailed information, and there was a case, I found that to be a wonderful source of information.
You told me in our background discussions for this series that you also wanted to talk about how people with this information can change the world. What did you mean by that?
So changing the world is tough. It has to be a labor of love. There's no direct or immediate payoff in most of what I do in this regard. I do hundreds of hours of research. I do a lot of things behind the scenes, like visiting courthouses, filing Freedom of Information Act requests, and there's no understanding of what the payoff will be. I know that of the many things that I'm digging into and trying to provide some sense to, there'll only be a handful where I'm ever actually able to make a difference. Some of the ways I try to use this information to make a difference is by serving on a number of standards and codes committees. I literally make hundreds of public inputs. I lobby politicians. I write papers and journal articles. And I work a lot with labor unions. I especially work a lot with the United Steelworkers Union and their health and safety groups on an international basis. I've found them to be great allies. We have common interests in protecting worker safety. What I want you to remember as you start this journey, if you start this journey, is that it's like you're going to be working to swing ocean liners around in the middle of the ocean. It takes a lot of effort. It could be very frustrating. It's going to take a lot of perseverance. Don't expect instant change. There'll be times you'll say, I'm just going to give up, but that's when you really need to keep going. Because when you do finally get that ordinance changed, or when you do finally get that public input accepted on a code committee, you know that forever, even after you leave this planet, you'll have done some good.
John, I want to thank you for opening my eyes, and hopefully some of those in the audience, about what it takes to investigate an industrial accident and actually make things better. I appreciate you sharing your experiences with us today.
Layla, it's been my pleasure. And for those that want to partake in this journey, who want to do an investigation, or you're in the middle of an investigation, or you have some information, you don't know what to do with it, where to go from here, drop me an email, jpushkar, J-P-U-S-K-A-R, @prescientts.com. I'm happy to help. Hi, it's John Pushkar. I hope you found this episode useful. If you'd like to know about more ways that I can help, you can check out my website at www.prescientts.com. There you'll find information about the Prescient Technical Services Online School, my book, Fuels and Combustion System Safety, What You Don't Know Can Kill You, and also about some of the consulting projects that I've been providing to clients for the past 40 years. Things like implementing inspection and testing programs on a corporate enterprise-wide level, things like reviewing and commenting on capital equipment purchases that involve combustion equipment, and even being a legal expert if things go really wrong. Once again, thank you for attending, and remember, be safe out there. The life you save, it just might be yours.